All right, everybody, welcome back to our Illume Connect channel. We're so glad to have you here. We are here at the Burns 1876 shop in Salina, Utah, so you might hear a little background noise, but we're happy to be here, and we are here with Trevor Alexander, who works at the Burns 1876 saddle shop. So glad to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how'd you get into this?
Well, I actually started my leatherworking career about 14 years ago. I bought a side of leather, started building tack for myself and for other people, and it really just spiraled from there. I told everybody that I met that I was going to be a leather worker, a little bit obnoxious about it, and yeah, it spiraled from there. How I got started at Burns was I walked in wearing Batman pajamas. Matt hired me on the spot.
No
And
kidding.
yeah,
When was this?
this was in 2015.
So Batman pajamas for the leather
Yeah.
interview.
Yep. Hired on the spot. I didn't actually go in for an interview. I just went in for a piece of rawhide. I was working on some repairs at the time. And I'd been in a couple of times. He'd seen me a few times buying leather, whatnot. And that time I walked in and he said, "Hey, how'd you like to have a job as a saddle maker?" And I said, "Shut up, dude." Accepted. And then about 2 weeks later, because I had to quit my other job, started into the saddle making career.
Where'd you start with that? Where did they throw you into?
So back when I started at Burns, it wasn't an assembly line like it is now.
Gotcha.
It was just straight up, you learn how to build saddles, and yeah.
So you did from the get-go, you did the saddle from beginning to end?
Yep.
How many steps is that?
A lot. So you've got your groundwork, which includes like your horn, cantle back, cantle filler, ground seat, that kind of stuff, strainer gullet cover, then skirts. After skirts, seat, oil, button up, put parts together. So I don't know. It's not bad. It's really not too hard.
So you'd been doing leather work for a long time, and then you got started with that. How long did it take you to start being confident in what you were doing for Burns?
It wasn't very long. With the training process that I went through, it was pretty intensive and you learned quickly. So it didn't take long. There was a guy that I built a saddle for him, and I noticed it because of the brand on the cantle. And I'm like, "Hey, I made that saddle." And this was one of the first saddles I made. And I'm like, "Hey, man, I made that saddle." And he just lit up. He's like, "No way, dude. I love this saddle. It's the best saddle I've ever rode in my entire life." And that in and of itself was a huge confidence boost because, like, literally the first saddle I made, the dude just freaked out and just loved the saddle. So it made me go, "Huh, maybe I am pretty good at this."
Well, confidence booster there.
Yeah.
So what's the training process like at Burns? A lot of shops, they're passing down to the next generation, right? And they're not quite sure how to do that. So what is the training process that you went through?
So the training process that I went through was just basically build a saddle side by side with my trainers. We just started right at the start. We went through building the saddle, starting with cutting it out and ended with oiling and buttoning up. And just really hands-on, making sure that you don't make any mistakes along the way. But
So they just threw in your hands-on learning step by step from the beginning.
yep, right from the start.
Probably a little more fun than watching a computer screen, right?
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
Burns has a really good environment of people, and yeah, it doesn't seem like work at all to me. Barely even seems like a job. It just seems like I get to wake up every morning, go over to the saddle shop, do what I love to do, and it pays the bills. So
That's great. What's your favorite part of your job?
that could be a tough one because I just have such a big passion for saddle making. But
Have you ever tried anything else
I have done lots of other things like
with your repairs and everything?
repairs, head stalls, spur strap, gun belts, like all of the basic stuff. Definitely done all of that, but I'd say my favorite thing for saddle making is probably swell covers, and that's probably a controversial thing because swell covers are usually the worst part of saddle making.
Okay.
But when you get really good at putting swell covers on, it's super rewarding to be able to take this piece of leather, shape it to a swell, and have an amazing product that is actually a very difficult process. So
That's good. What's the most challenging? Because you're over a part of the shop, right? What's the most challenging from going from just kind of being thrown in, from pajamas to now? What's the most challenging thing you've come across over that time?
developing a system that works in a production environment is definitely the most challenging part of it, because people have different strengths and weaknesses. So trying to designate who does what depending on their strengths and weaknesses is probably the most difficult part.
Who do you look up to in the industry as a whole? Because you have access to so many, and then you've been a part of so much. Who do you look up to? Who do you go to when you have maybe a block or a challenge?
Definitely Matt Warner. That's my go-to. I'll call him up if he's not around and just give him any sort of questions that I have about leather work. Ross Brunk and Gordon Andrus.
Okay.
I love their work. I think they are very talented saddle makers and craftsmen. Gordon's silver work is crazy, and just all the stuff that he does, it blows me away anytime I see another project that he does.
He's a really cool guy. He
Yeah.
does some amazing stuff. Speaking of him, he teaches on the Illume learning platform, and so do you. What classes have you taught there?
What classes have I taught? I've taught quite a few. I've done a few swell cover classes because that's, like I said, that's kind of like my favorite thing. I've done a leather pauldron.
What is that?
So a pauldron is a piece of shoulder armor that is from the Renaissance area.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's a little different. It's not exactly a saddle making thing, but it's something that I still have a big passion for. I really like Renaissance type things. I like Lord of the Rings.
Same.
Big nerd into that stuff, so that I gravitate towards the nerdy stuff in leather work as well as the more serious saddle making stuff.
So you do Renaissance fairs and whatnot?
I go to a couple. Yeah.
Okay. So what have you made for that? Because I
I've
think there's a
actually-
lot of people that when they think leather, they think Renaissance, they think Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I've actually made I've made the pauldron that I wear, and I made a chainmail shirt that is just absolutely mind-numbing, and that takes up enough time that you don't really have much time to build anything else. So
Is that like link by link you're
yeah,
talking
link
about?
by link.
How heavy is that?
It's pretty heavy. Yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable to wear around for a day. So
Armor was never meant to be comfortable nor convenient.
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, leather armor, it's really not that bad.
Right.
But metal armor, it's not that fun to wear.
What are you going to make now? After you've finished your chainmail, what are you going to make next for that?
So something that I really want to do is make, I'm also a bladesmith as well. So I want to make a Scottish short sword. My heritage comes from Scotland, and we were a pretty fearsome clan in Scotland. And I want to honor my heritage by just doing the whole get up, kilt, whole 9 yards. I probably won't make the kilt, but make all the leather stuff that I possibly can for it. Make the scabbard for the sword, just everything. That's one of the things I really want to do. Make a sporran for it and everything.
So a lot of people, I hear this all the time, a lot of people hit those creative blocks and they feel like they've hit a wall, and sometimes it's momentary. Sometimes 13 years down the road, they're like, man, I hit that wall hard. What do you do? It sounds like you have your passions outside of saddles, but what do you do when you are in the shop and you hit that wall of creativity and you can't make it happen? What do you do? Where do you turn?
So I have a pretty creative mind, and it sometimes will take that reset of the mind to just do something that's absolutely mind-numbing, like putting on a couple swell covers will kind of reset you and be like, oh, okay, I'm back into that project now. But just something to just reset it, something that you're really good at, reset the mind, and come back in with a fresh perspective on the product.
Do something that you don't necessarily have to use all your energy on.
Yeah. Yeah, and just don't even think about the project that you're stressed about. Just forget about that, work on something that you're really good at, and then come back with a new lens on it.
What do you do in your day-to-day life outside of work that helps with your creative processes? A lot of people, hopefully it's nothing terrible for you, but I mean, we were talking to a couple other artists, and sometimes it's being outdoors, sometimes it's time with family. What do you do to kind of keep that passion alive outside of it?
Outside of leatherwork, I do a lot of tinkering. I work on motorcycles. I work on RC rock crawlers. I do a lot of things with my hands and just keeps my brain going and keeps me thinking about like improving other things other than just leatherwork, like improving a bike. I might be tearing it apart, improving a part on it, seeing if it'll go faster,
Of course,
whatever
it's
you
gonna
may
go faster.
have. Yeah, usually it goes way faster, but
I want to circle back to the learning platform. Um, so, with that, did you ever see yourself teaching? I'm always curious about that.
yes and no. Um, I've always liked showing people what I'm doing, and it could definitely lead into teaching, but I definitely love showing people what I'm doing, especially somebody that understands the craft. And it tends to lead into questions of, oh, how did you make this happen, or how did you make that happen? And so yeah, I definitely, I definitely like the teaching aspect and the showing what I can do to help other people improve their work.
What's the most challenging part of teaching, and especially, in a studio with a camera on you? What's the most challenging part of that?
Basically just making sure you're teaching the right thing. So as most artists are, kind of scatterbrained.
Right.
So when you're scatterbrained and trying to like make one cohesive thought go through and make a product at the end of it, it's really difficult because it's like, oh, I was working on this, but I forgot that we need to actually work on that, and it bounces back and forth, and that can be difficult for somebody that's never done it before
Sure.
to be like, oh, okay,
Talking pepperoni before the sauce.
yeah, why
Yeah.
why are we jumping all around?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's probably the hardest part of like actually conveying what I want to teach.
Okay. So this question comes up a lot with the magazine, because we have the online learning platform that you're a part of, and we have the magazine. And this question comes up a lot. We have this kind of the legacies, the legends of leather crafters, and they're trying to pass that on to the next generation, their apprentices and family members, and they don't know how to connect with the younger generation or even where to start. Somebody who is younger, what would your advice to that generation be in teaching?
Um, my advice would be to just, if you love it, pursue it. So if you've got that passion for leather work, whether it's nerdy stuff, saddle making, tack, whatever it is, just really pursue it, really go after it. You're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. You're going to burn through a lot of pieces of cowhide. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you love it, just keep going after it no matter what.
Don't worry about the burned pieces of cowhide.
Yeah, it's fine. They make more cows every day.
What's something that you're most proud of? You've been doing this a long time. What's the project that you're most proud of?
I've built two Mother Hubbards. One was a skirt over, or how do I put this? Basically, it was a cover that goes over the whole saddle. That's one piece of leather. Had some nice silver conchos on it, mini basket. That saddle was nice.
You made two of them.
So that one that was the skirt over, I made one of those with the silver conchos, and then the second saddle that I made was a stitch down top Mother Hubbard. So the whole thing was stitched on the tree, and it was a fun project for sure.
That's pretty unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done any competitions with your work?
Yeah, for sure.
What have you done?
I've won the World Leather debut a few times.
Is that in Sheridan?
Yep, in Sheridan. The Wichita Falls show, the one down there, I've won that one. And then the Pendleton Leather Show. I've been up to that one a few times.
So I hear a lot. Um, we hear a lot about people that maybe are newer, or even if they're not newer, they're thinking about competition and it just stresses them out. The whole thing stresses them out, whether it's making the product and being judged for it, whether it's getting there and having somebody critique them, or just being willing to show their product in general. So, what is your advice when it comes to all of that with the competitions? What would you tell somebody who's nervous about thinking about it?
Just don't be nervous. We get that everybody has their flaws with their leather work or whatever they're making. Everybody's going to have flaws. Some people have more blaring flaws than others, but it's all about pursuing what you want to do and being proud of what you make. I mean, building a saddle or a bag or whatever they're going to make is a pretty impressive thing all by itself, let alone doing a flawless job of it. So be proud that you were able to even make that thing. Doesn't matter if it's perfect, doesn't matter. Everybody's on different levels. So just go show off what you did, take the critique, do better when you can.
Yeah. How do you deal with your critique? I know you've been in competitions, and a lot of that, sometimes there is a ribbon and sometimes there's just critique and sometimes there's both. What do you do with the critique you receive?
So most of the time I take it and I go, okay, this is definitely something that I needed to work on. I get that. And I'll try to work on that throughout the year for the next show. But there's some critique that you get that's like, okay, that's just an opinion, and you need to take it for that person's opinion. Yes, that is a qualified judge, and their opinion does have some weight to it. But at the end of the day, it's your project, not theirs, and just take it for that.
Because there is a uniqueness in,
Yeah.
in all other.
Yeah, at one point it's just art, and who's to say whose art is right or wrong?
Are you teaching more classes with Illume?
Yeah, I've got one coming up that's going to be rather interesting. It's a really hard way to do a swell cover.
Because it was easy in the first place.
Yeah, because why not just make something hard even harder? So
Right. With any project, you've taught several classes. What's your advice to anybody starting a class with you?
just keep an open mind. One of the big things that I notice in leatherwork is somebody comes into something with this predetermined thing that they already know how to do it. And if somebody comes into the class with that kind of attitude, it's probably not going to go that good. But if they come into the class with the attitude of, okay, I really want to figure this thing out. I'm going to just put all my bad habits to the side and I'm going to really try to figure out what they're trying to teach. I think that's when you can gain the most from any class, really.
There's a lot of anatomy to learn when it comes to making saddles, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And do you study that at all when it comes to things like this so that you can make these premium saddles and even just a good saddle in general?
Yeah, for sure. You got to make sure that when your skirts are on the horse, it's not going to be way too long and it's going to be digging into the rear end of the horse or even into the front end of the horse. You got to make sure that everything flows correctly, make sure your skirts aren't dipping down. Just really being cognizant that there's a living animal going underneath the saddle and making sure that there's nothing on that bottom side of the saddle that's going to upset the horse at all. As far as studying it, it just goes back into my cowboy past that you really learn what a horse likes and what it doesn't like. And it just,
They'll let you know.
yeah, they'll let you know. So yeah, that's how we figured out a lot of stuff is just from trial and error and other saddles, other saddle makers. And that's the main study course, I guess.
It was great chatting with you. It was nice getting to know what you're doing more. And I thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you guys for your time. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like and share this video, and keep an eye on the page for more interviews just like this one. And keep an eye out on the learning platform for Trevor's classes. There's more coming, and there's plenty to learn.